Up next, we will bring to the stage my teammate, one of Bushel's team members, Julie Christensen, and she is going to talk about some of the highlights of our upcoming State of the Farm report that we are publishing from Bushel. So we surveyed all the users of our Bushel Farm platform, and we got feedback from over 1,000 farmers on just some of the key trends, some of the things they're thinking about, some of the uncertainties that are in the world right now. And so Julie is going to walk us through a sneak peek of some of the report as we get ready to publish it in July this year. So welcome to the stage, Julie.
All right, thank you all. First of all, I want to let you know I'm not a data scientist, and I don't even play one on TV. So forgive me for any data errors that I might make while I'm talking today. One thing I can tell you is that I've had a really long career in agriculture. And so when I look at these trends and look at data about where agriculture is going, I certainly relate to seeing a lot of those things come true over the course of my career. I'm a farm kid from Northwest Iowa. I got my degree in agricultural journalism from Iowa State. I spent the early part of my career trading corn and soybeans. And then I moved on from that. That was with a little grain and cattle company. And then I went and I worked for Schooler. I know there's a big Schooler contingency in the room today. I had the fortunate opportunity to trade wheat with Schooler and then segue my career into marketing communications. And I had the pleasure of founding the formal marketing communications function for Schooler while I was there. 25 years later, which seemed to go by in a blink, I was the director of brand marketing corporate comm, and I had always promised myself that I was going to have the courage to have a second half of life career. Well, second half of life comes pretty darn quick. I don't know if other people in the room can relate to that, but it sneaks up on you pretty fast, and I had the opportunity to get bitten by the bushel bug and decided to start the second half with a lot of very young, very energetic people working on ag technology. So that's how I got here. Now I'm a product marketer for Bushel Farm, and that's how I got this lovely project, which is all about surveying farmers and gathering data to help us determine direction for the products that we're making. So State of the Farm, just to ground you in it a little bit, the State of the Farm report was started by farm logs. That was before we had acquired them. So about 2016, they started conducting some research with their users to determine, what's going on in the industry, what's going on with the people that we're serving. We continued that once we acquired farm logs. We did a survey in last year, and then we did it again this year, and we'll be publishing those final report results in July, but you guys all are here and you're going to get a little bit of a sneak peek. One other interesting piece to note is that we've seen an increase in sample size each year. So 2020, we had 700 respondents. 2022, we skipped a year there, we had about 750, and then this year we had 1,350, which is about the same number that McKinsey had for their Voice of the US Farmer Survey. So we have a pretty good representative sample of agriculture of farmers here. A little bit about this year's report in particular. It was an online survey, 1,350 respondents. We segmented it, so we really looked at row crop farmers or specialty crop farmers, so it's representative of the people that the people in this room care about, right? And we built a little bit on past surveys, some year over year. I think we're going to get better at that as we go forward, once we get some consistency about the questions that we want to ask. We asked about 50 questions, so obviously I'm just going to give you a preview of some of those today, and mostly the things that grain companies, I think, would care about that came out of that survey. But those 50 questions were segmented into 6 categories. We asked some basic demographics questions, right, about who you are, where you are, how old you are, that kind of thing, so we know who's answering our questions. We asked them some questions about technology, of course, we're a technology company. We talked about grain marketing, payments, sustainability, and then some general priorities, concerns, and opportunities that they saw for the coming year. So with that long introduction, we can dig into the data itself. The first area that we want to go through here is just to set the table on demographics. So you have a really good understanding about who did we talk to, and if you identify with some of those people as potentially the customers that you're serving, I think you will. So we first looked at location. We asked what region their farm was headquartered, and 66% of our respondents came from the Midwest or the Southern Plains. I think that's pretty representative of US agriculture as well, as some of those top states in terms of numbers of farms are in those regions. If we look at relationship to farming, we wanted to know what is their primary relationship. More than 54% of our respondents are full-time farm owners or operators. We wanted to know if they were the decision makers on the farm. This one actually surprised me. 86% of our respondents said that they were the primary decision maker on the farm. We looked at age. Of course, that's a hot topic in agriculture right now when we talk about farmers and age, right? 52% of our respondents were over 61. 20% were over 50. And I wanted to dig into that a little bit more about our year-over-year data. And of course, this is our survey, but I think it mimics what a lot of people in agriculture are talking about. Anytime you read about agriculture and trends, you hear information about age, right, and concern about the aging. We see it here in our data. Here's 20, 22, and 23 surveys that we've conducted, right? So check out that over 60 group. It's crazy, actually, how fast people are tumbling into that bucket. So massive change is on the way, and I think if we think about that age piece, that's a lens that we want to look through all of these categories at, right? Acreage was another one that we looked at. 50% of our respondents farm less than 500 acres. That's really not a surprise. The 2017 USDA census reported that 85% of farms were less than 500 acres. So we actually, I think our survey respondents were actually a little bit larger than what the USDA data shows. So you can see at the top there the number of farms that fell into each one of those categories. So I'm going to guess that the farmers that we surveyed, those larger ones, are probably the ones that many of you in this room would like to be buying some grain from. Okay, so we set the table a little bit. We set the table with the demographics. You know who we're talking to. Here's some of their responses and some of the stories. I'm hoping we're going to go for stories with data here, not just numbers, because I've heard that numbers are numbing. So the last thing I want to do after lunch is numb you. So the first conclusion that I reached, and again, not a data scientist, but it's that farmers really do think that software is important to their future. We saw, we asked them how important is mobile and desktop software to the future of row crop farming in particular. And the consensus was that 90% of our respondents believe that desktop and mobile software technologies are important to the future of row crop farming. Not only do they believe it's important, but farmers are willing to adopt technology, and I think we saw that on our farmer panel. I think we've heard that. Sometimes I think people think we're just slicing that out so we can highlight it at a conference or something, right? But this is a survey of 1,350 farmers across the board, and they are saying, what's your willingness to adopt technology? 44% are willing to experiment. Right? That's pretty high, I think, and another 22% want to see other success before they dip in, but they're not in droves saying we're just not willing to adopt. They're also actually using software. We asked the question, how many different software programs are you using for your farm today? They're putting their money where their mouth is. They say it's important and we're willing to try it, and they're actually using it. 44% of respondents said they use 1 to 2 software programs. Only 19% said they don't use any software at all. And 24% of them use 4 or more programs. So software is in their hands and getting used. I also think this is really interesting. We look at that 20% roughly that said, I'm not using any software at all. And we wanted to know, well, why is that? What's getting in your way? What's the barrier? What's the primary reason you're not using that software? And so of that group that said they weren't, 40% said the reasons were unclear benefits or uncertainty about how to use that software. So that tells me that we all have some work to do if we want to be successful in our technology endeavors. So we're going to do a quick recap here, and this is where hopefully this story starts to make some sense and maybe adds up to some opportunities for all of you. So the large majority say that technology is important to the future. Nearly half are willing to experiment with new tech. Nearly half use 1 to 2 software programs for their farm business. And of the 20% who say they don't use anything at all, 40% of those say it's because there's unclear benefits or they're uncertain how to use it. It's not because they don't want it, right? So that leads me to, what is the opportunity here? It sure feels like people are ready to take on some technology. What technologies have you looked at that you think would be mutually beneficial to you and to the farmer? Is now the time to implement that? And are you willing and ready to make sure that you're clear in the benefits of that software as well as help them learn how to use it? That would be another opportunity for everybody in this room. Maybe there's software that you're already got out there that you wish you'd get a higher traction on. There might be an opportunity to do that with education. Grain marketing was the next section that we looked at. We looked at this obviously because our target demographic here, the people we care about, are the people in this room, and grain marketing is a big piece of that. This is where my data science comes in, the big chunk. That's a technical term, right? A big chunk of farmers are neutral about their marketing results. We asked them, how satisfied are you with your marketing results? And almost, half here, a little over half, are satisfied. They're in that category. But 42% of them said they were neutral, and 5% are in the dissatisfied realm. People are pretty confident, it would seem, about their marketing, maybe perhaps more so than real, but when I see people in that big neutral bucket like that, it sure feels like there's an opportunity there to tumble them in, right? They're influenceable when they're in that neutral state. Then we looked at the level of satisfaction with their marketing results alongside cost of production information. And again, the very dissatisfied bucket there, 5% of the respondents. So I'm kind of looking at those highlighted groups here. We saw a correlation between the satisfaction and the understanding and use of their cost of production, right? The most satisfied farmer marketers were more likely to know and use that cost of production. So of that group, you can see up there, 95% of those who are very satisfied said they have a very good understanding. That really starts to fall off as you go down that. You get down to 82% for that group that's neutral, that really say they have a good understanding. And then when you look at that cost, I use my cost of production to set where I begin marketing my crop. Same kind of trend, little bit of a switch there in those top two, but definitely a fall off when you get into the neutral category. Right. We had to ask the question, right? We're seeing great traction. You've heard the statistic about over 40% of all offers now are coming through mobile offers for the customers that we have that have make offer in the app. But we wanted to ask this question. In 2022, we asked a yes/no question. We just said, are you ready to sell grain using an app? 25% of people said yes. 75% of people said no. That's just not very long ago, right? This year, we wanted to get some more shades of gray in here and have a little bit more understanding. And the responses nearly fell into thirds, right? About a third in the unlikely, about a third in the not sure, and a third in the somewhat likely category. Again, interesting to me that there's 31% that are in that not sure category. That just smells like opportunity every time I see an unsure or a neutral, right? So an opportunity perhaps there. So let's recap. At our grain marketing section, we got more than 40% of our farmers saying they're neutral about their grain marketing results. Farmers who know and use their cost of production are more satisfied marketers than those who aren't. 31% say they are likely to use an app or a website to submit offers or sell grain, and another 30% are unsure as to whether they would use an app. Opportunity? I mean, curious what people in the room are thinking about that, but it sure seems like there would be an opportunity for you to help your farmers feel more satisfied with their grain marketing results. And that could be as simple as helping them understand their cost of production and helping them use it to set to begin their pricing. And I'm curious that if they have that firm understanding or they are using that cost of production, does that tip more of those farmers that are in that 30% in the unsure bucket to tip into the, yeah, I'm somewhat likely or likely to use an app to sell grain? I'd be curious again to know what people in the room think about that. Payments, last section. Hopefully I'm good on time here, got 5 minutes. Payments is something we're interested in. Obviously, Jake talked about that at the beginning. We're dipping into fintech and Bushel payments and Bushel wallet. We wanted to know what farmers are thinking in this area. Checks are still king, right? Checks, we said, how do you get paid for your grain? 82% of farmers say their grain payments are made by check. Huge number, right? We asked, how do you pay for your inputs? What are your payment forms? A little bit more varied here, but still 83% are saying they are using a check, right? So checks are still the farmer's choice, or perhaps not the farmer's choice, but the choice that they're making today. But then we asked them about digital payment forms. We said, have you used a digital payment processor to send or receive money? They're clearly not really doing it with their grain payments, or not much in the inputs world. But we saw 40% say, yeah, I'm using some sort of digital payments platform. They're using PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, Zelle, those are the ones that they referenced. So it's not that they're unfamiliar or they don't see value or don't want to use it. Then I wanted to look a little bit outside of ourselves, so go beyond what our State of the Farm survey said, and just get a feel for what's going on in the world, not just in agriculture, right? So I looked to McKinsey, and they did a 2022 digital payments consumer survey. And that survey showed nearly 2/3 of Americans expect to have a digital wallet within the next couple of years. And they also saw a marked increase in the share of consumers that intend to use 3 or more digital wallets in the coming years. That went from 18% in 21 to 30% in 2022. So and then I'm like, well, now that I have this digital wallet information from outside, maybe we should look at check information from the outside world too. What's been going on with checks over time outside of the ag space? So this is checks for B2B payments, right, in the US and Canada. It's a study that was done by the American finance professionals in 2022. And pretty marked recline here. Right? We go from, 81% of all B2B payments in 2004 were in checks, and today we're at 33%. So you can definitely see where we're headed in the world, and maybe not in ag yet. So let's recap. Checks are still king, right? But other forms of payment are certainly coming, and we see ACH in particular coming up. 40% of farmers are using digital payments today. They're sticking the toe in the water. It may not be in their agricultural realm, but they're using them. McKinsey shows that digital wallets are quickly replacing leather ones. And American finance professionals shows those B2B payments made by check are down nearly 50% in the last 20 years. So is there an opportunity here? Is there an opportunity to get a head start on the farmers of tomorrow, which are going to be here tomorrow, given the number of farmers that are tumbling into that over 60 bucket? And can you get that head start on digital payments using tools that farmers are already using today without having to invent something or create yet another software that they have to use? So that's just a snapshot of those 3 areas. We have more information about sustainability, more information about all of these categories, as well as just a general look at what farmers' priorities, concerns, and opportunities are for 2023, straight from their mouths. So you can look for a full report in July of 2023, and that's what I got for you. So I'll be interested in hearing what your thoughts are about all of this later tonight, maybe at the shindig. Thank you.